The main ingredient in general anesthesia is propofol. And while I'm a chemist by trade, I'd never given much thought to propofol in my life until I was scheduled for a surgery. A routine procedure to repair a hernia that had been bothering me for some time. Like most people facing surgery for the first time, I read up on the anesthesia process. I wanted to know what would happen when I was put under. What I found, at first, was reassuring enough. But the properties of propofol struck me as strange. We all assume that during surgery we don't feel anything because we're unconscious. And that's fine. I had no desire to be awake on an operating table. But propofol doesn't just make you sleep. It has another effect, one that made me a little uncomfortable. Besides inducing unconsciousness, propofol is also an amnesiac. That is, it makes you forget. More precisely, it prevents the brain from encoding memory in the first place. I'm sure I wasn't alone in considering the implications of that once I learned it. The question lodged itself in my mind and refused to leave. What if anesthesia isn't what we think it is? What if, far from eliminating pain during surgery, it's simply a way to ensure you don't remember how painful it was? I couldn't stop picturing myself strapped to the operating table, conscious, aware, feeling everything while my brain quietly failed to record it. An experience perfectly lived and perfectly erased. Needless to say, the thought disturbed me. The more I turned it over, the more it consumed me. Part of it was fear, but part of it was professional curiosity. As a scientist, I wanted an answer. A real one. And there was no way to get it without putting myself at risk. But I was willing to test it. You see, it wouldn't be particularly difficult to design a compound that interfered specifically with propofol's effect on memory encoding while leaving its other mechanisms untouched. In principle, I could create a drug that, if taken beforehand, will allow me to remember everything. If anesthesia worked the way we believed it did, the compound would do nothing. I'd be unconscious, and there would be nothing to remember. But if something else was happening, if consciousness remained, I would know. I told myself that, as surgeries go, a hernia repair probably wasn't that bad. Painful, yes, but survivable. And if I did remember something, anything, it would be traumatic, certainly. But it would also be a scientific discovery of enormous importance. I decided I would take the chance. With more than a month before my surgery, I got to work mapping out propofol's pathways and its effects on memory. I learned that its primary impact comes from potentiating GABA-A receptors, increasing chloride influx into neurons and hyperpolarizing postsynaptic membranes. In simple terms, it shuts down the conditions required for memory formation. My goal was to create a compound that bound to those same receptors but had a dramatically shorter half-life. Long enough to block propofol's amnesiac effect, but brief enough to clear quickly and allow memory function to resume. The timing would be critical. I would need to take it shortly before the propofol was administered. That wasn't a problem. I tested the compound on myself, measuring recall and tracking the timing of memory gaps after ingestion. After a week or two of refinement, I had something I believed would work. The preliminary results were promising. And that, I told myself, was the most dangerous part. In all likelihood, I was in more danger ingesting my haphazard compounds than I would be from the anesthesia, regardless of how it ended up working. But I had passed that hurdle and was, anxiously, ready for my surgery. When the day finally came, I tucked the small glass vial containing my compound into my pocket and headed over to the surgery center. Just before they wheeled me off to the operating room, I downed the liquid. There was no turning back now. The doctor hooked up my 4 and told me to count down from 10. I don't think I got to 5. The next thing I knew, I was awake in a different room. I was still on the gurney, and, from the feeling around my groin area, post-operation. But something was wrong. My wrists and ankles were strapped down. I struggled against my restraints, but couldn't budge. Soon though, a man entered the room. He didn't look like a doctor. He wore jeans and a t-shirt and carried a large tablet under his arm.
Mr. Jones, I'm a technician for, and we have purchased the biometric data rights from this surgery center.
I didn't know what that meant and was more than a little freaked out. So, I returned to struggling feebly against my restraints.
Mr. Jones, please. Your surgery was a success, but if you continue like this, you may damage your incision.
I tried to calm down, but my heart rate was through the roof, and my breathing came in ragged gasps. What is this?
I'm just going to collect some data from you, and then you'll be on your way. Not to worry. You won't remember a thing.
He placed his tablet down on his lap, and with a few taps, a device on a long arm swiveled from the wall and hovered above me. The device whirred and flashed as it rotated and projected a grid pattern over my body.
First, we'll do some ocular mapping.
The device moved within inches of my face. I tried to turn away, but something held my head in place. Tiny arms emerged from the device and grabbed onto each of my eyelids, holding them open. The machine emitted a series of flashes, whirs and beeps as it hovered over my eyes.
Now we'll collect a sample of vitreous humor.
Didn't know what that was when he said it, but soon discovered, to my horror, that it's the fluid in your eye. A small door on the device hissed open, and the long needle approached my eye with a metallic glint. I screamed. I struggled. But ultimately, I stared helplessly as the needle pierced my eye. The pain was excruciating. Another beep, and the needle retracted.
On to gastrointestinal data.
The man spoke so casually, as if he had done this hundreds of times. He probably had. A long cylindrical apparatus emerged from the device, and without warning rammed itself into my mouth. I could feel the cold metal snaking down my throat, muffling my screams. It felt like that thing was inside me for an eternity. And when it emerged, it was covered in clear, viscous goop.
We got your blood while we were in there. Time for bone marrow.
The device hovered over my right leg, just out of my range of sight. I heard the unmistakable sound of a drill whiz to life and felt a shooting pain in my thigh.
All right. Almost done. Just one more thing.
Now we get to the part that I'm not even comfortable sharing anonymously. I'll leave it to your imagination.
All right, Mr. Jones, all done. Time to go back to sleep. When you wake up, this will all be gone.
I knew he was wrong. So, as I was drifting back to sleep, I had to ask, what's this all for?
With all this data, we'll be able to show you some killer ads.
I woke up in a normal recovery room. All the doctors and nurses acted as if nothing had happened. Those ads had better be good.